were a bit raunchy and raucous.
We kept you on a really short leash.
Nice to be on someone's leash sometimes.
I was gonna say, with that hair, you better play an instrument. It is so rock and roll. I love it.
I think she's a they. That didn't come out right. Can you do this for, a donut?
People would do anything for a t-shirt.
That's like genius.
Welcome everyone to the Rainbow Remix. Denise is a bit under the weather today, so I am going to be flying solo, and I am so happy to have Donna Weinberger with us from Inspire Recovery in South Florida. Thank you for being here, Donna.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what you do at your organization.
Sure. Well, I had started Inspire Recovery back in 2015, and it started out as a substance use and behavioral health care treatment center for the LGBTQ community. And what we realized pretty quickly is that the community that we serve, especially the trans and queer community, especially BIPOC trans people, trans female people, typically are the most underserved. They don't have funds and insurance. So we actually started Transpire Help in October 2016. And that's our nonprofit. So that is what Pride on the Block is a fundraiser for. So Pride on the Block is one of 4 fundraisers that we have for Transpire Help throughout the year, and definitely our largest fundraiser. And then more recently, I opened Q Space Detox and Pride Detox.
Oh,
So Q Space Detox is down in south of Miami, Homestead. And
that's
so,
down there. Yeah.
yes. So what would happen is our clients would go to treatment centers, and so what we have in West Palm Beach is sort of like outpatient. It's 6 hours a day, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day. And then we have housing that our clients live in, but they would have to go to detox or residential treatment somewhere where they were not affirmed. So they would have to either room with the wrong gender, or they couldn't share about their experiences, let's say with chemsex in a group.
Yeah.
And they it was very uncomfortable, they couldn't be their authentic self. So we worked very hard to open a detox and residential treatment center so that they could have all levels of care in an affirming environment. And so Q Space opened in 24. And then we also opened in California, in Los Angeles County in
Wow.
24 as well. That's Pride Detox. And really that we opened because in 21, we started seeing the legislation change, and really became worried that we wouldn't be able to do what we do here in Florida. We have been able to, and we keep adjusting, but we do have the California facility as well. So, we can do a little bit more there when it comes to life-saving interventions for the trans community. And but yeah, so that's basically it. So I'm sort of like the visionary, and I saw this gap, especially for the trans and queer community, and that's how Inspire Recovery got created, and then Transpire Help and Q Space and Pride Detox.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, it is overwhelming to start one, but to have so many facilities going is just so commendable. So this is your brainchild, this idea that there was a need for this in the community.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how difficult was it to get this started? Because I would imagine it must take a whole lot of funding and a whole lot of red tape to do what you want to do, and for such a specific community.
Yeah, it is certainly difficult. When I first opened Inspire Recovery, I had three partners, and one was a doctor, and one was more like a CFO, COO,
Yeah,
and had the experience working with tenant, hospital systems, and then a person who was more like a serial entrepreneur. So we actually opened it together, and then about 2 years later, the industry changed, and so if if you weren't in the industry to help people and then especially help this community, it really wasn't a place that people necessarily wanted to stay in just because it wasn't a big money maker. And so, I obviously had been working real closely with the community and seeing all the changes, how people were having these incredible transformations. And my main goal has always been to create successful and visible LGBTQ folk to be able to be working and going to school and be successful within our local community. And so that's what I was able to create in West Palm Beach. And so, I was able to keep it going by taking a few small partners for Inspire Recovery. And I, would say financially it has been a little difficult, especially opening two places, the one in California and in Florida at the same time, and with the industry continuing to get worse as far as reimbursement from insurance companies.
yeah,
And also through our nonprofit, our funding also was just about cut in half from 20. Well, we have a fiscal year, and then our fiscal year is coming up again. So we'll see what happens with funding. The more, things change in our administration, the more funding gets cut for organizations like Transpire Help. So I would say it's been a labor of love. I've put a lot of my own funding into it, taken out a lot of loans, and uh,
wow,
just determined to keep it going and for as long as possible. Because again, like I said, like we have clients that came through our center that are now graduating with their master's degree and going to be therapists. And we have, if you go all around Clematis Street or City Place in West Palm Beach, our clients are there, they're working, they're visible. So when people go into these businesses, they see that visibility, and they also are get to see that, we're just like everybody else,
yeah,
except maybe we try a little harder to be extra nice and extra helpful. And I think that that creates a good example for the LGBTQ community, but also, young people get to see someone that that looks like how they feel.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hear statistically there's so much more chances of people being of addiction and also suicide in the community, people being rejected by their families. Um, there's such a need for this because where they probably, I'm sure these people feel there's nowhere for them to go where they're understood. So the fact that you saw this and you took action to start is beyond commendable because it's a daunting starting a nonprofit alone is a daunting process to get you're a 501(c)(3)
Transpire Help is
station.
a
Yeah.
501(c)(3). Yes.
I mean, I have
Mhm.
friends that started them for other things and just other causes and just getting that 501(c) alone is such a process that you really need to be so committed to what you're doing. And I think it's great that your people who you've helped have come through the program and are now working and being successful within the community because the visibility is so important that I'm sure inspires people to
Mhm.
be part of this. And I am so excited to be part of Pride on the Block for that reason, because when we talked last Pride, not this past one, but the one before, that you were going to be doing that, Pride on the Block was going to be benefiting this organization then, if I remember correctly, right? We
Yeah.
think we have
Yeah.
my niece, Joni. Um,
Joni is your niece. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I know Joni from a decade or two ago, a long time ago when Joni was with, I want to say it was New Times or Sun Sentinel.
okay. City Link. She worked for City
CityLink,
Link.
CityLink. Yeah, they did some articles on my businesses back in the day. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I remember you guys knew each other, and that is awesome. I forgot to tell her you were going to be on today, but I'm sure she'll be coming to Pride on the Block with me.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, I'll make sure she's there. But it's so awesome to see, women stepping up and doing something in the community, and to take on a cause that's so needed. Um, I remember when we spoke back then, you said that there was quite a lot of homelessness that goes along
Mhm.
with this, with the situation, the issue of addiction, drug abuse,
Mhm.
substance abuse. Um, do you think it's because the people, besides the fact that they are in active addiction, because they're not accepted by their families because of their sexuality?
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because obviously an LGBTQ person is 100% normal and, you know, is adequately uh set up to to be able to live and function in society. And then what happens is external traumas pop up, and that could be, like you mentioned, from family, it could be from a religion, it could be from school, from classmates, from just not seeing visibility at all. But those external traumas, they cause people to pick up maladaptive ways of coping, which would be substance use, self-harm, suicidal ideation, suicide,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
happens. And so for an LGBTQ person, to just stay alive through all of that trauma is huge. But yes, families do often ask them to leave when they come out, and that's unfortunate too, just due to their own brainwashing that has happened to them. They choose not to accept their child, or not to affirm their child. Some families rather a dead child than to be affirming and to be accepting of their child. And so a person, any person, LGBTQ or not, that is affirmed in their gender, in their sexual orientation, is going to flourish. And, a person that isn't, and they see in every which way they're not accepted, they're not affirmed in who they know they are, then, they create a persona, or, and, their authentic self disappears.
yeah,
And of
yeah,
course, through that, they're going to have to cope. But definitely homelessness happens, and then a combination of using substances and being homeless creates this big need. And Transpire helps a lot with that, with housing, and that housing and being able to help folks to start recovery, and then adding on life skills helps people to be able to learn how to be supportive of themselves financially, and therefore be able to support themselves with a home.
yeah, absolutely. That's so rewarding too for someone who was in that situation to come out of that, being able to self-support and have a place to live. Does Inspire Recovery house the people? Is this like a place where they're in for how long? 60 days, 90 days? Is there a period of time that people come in to stay to get recovery?
Yeah, I would say folks they might stay anywhere from 1 month to 1 year. Average is about 6 months. It does definitely take time. If someone is doing well, they usually stay longer.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's sort of like a phase system.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, so in the beginning they're really just learning how to stay sober off substances and realizing they're in a place where there's peers that they can relate to, because just feeling safe, it's kind of the first time that ever really happens after being, let's say, if they've been in several treatment centers, or
Right.
they come, from a family where they weren't affirmed. So that's sort of the first phase, then going through life skills and leaving to go find a job. And that process can also be a little difficult, especially for trans and non-binary people, because they might show their driver's license, which says something different than, what they're saying when they go to interview for a position. And so each situation that happens, they get to come back and share about it, and chances are someone else has gone through it. And but that is like that is a time period where people tend to have, they might relapse, or they might have higher cravings, or might have, what you would see as higher symptoms of depression or anxiety. And, again, it's because of the external trauma that they are now in the middle of facing, but they have a safe place to come back to. So, it's being able to walk through, all sorts of situations until they do have more of a stable life, both outside and inside the housing, but also when they leave and go to work or go to school, that they've landed something that is safe and is affirming. So that, but that process takes a little while. So I would say 6 months is definitely the average length of stay.
That's awesome. I mean, what an amazing it's so amazing to watch, like when you for you and your staff to see lives transformed. In my business, I have a pallet and crate business, and we um, work with the work release center for our employees in the yard. And these are guys that are usually 6 months, 9 to 6 months to being out. And it is so awesome to see lives transformed where they now leave with a place, with a skill set, in my situation, and that they leave with a way to start their life. And uh, to be on the other side of that and see that people are able to start their lives because you gave them a step up, a hand up, is just really rewarding, and not enough of that is done. So now, and in your case, I mean, you're taking it so much more of a step because you have that program. And I would imagine, like, if you have, like, in staffing, how much of a staff do you have at the facility where the people live?
Yeah, we have a pretty decent sized staff between the clinic and the housing. So each house has about two staff members, and then the clinic, we have about maybe 15 staff that work with the clients, between therapists, case managers,
Wow.
behavioral health techs, administrative, and peer support. So all of that goes a long way. And I think that our clients do require a little bit more of a staff to client, a smaller staff to client ratio than maybe some other larger centers.
Hmm.
It's more of a family atmosphere. And obviously, it's a LGBTQ place, so it feels, it definitely has a safe feeling, because of the staff, that we've worked really hard to create a hiring process that really, really seeks to find the staff that is is a little bit more passionate and different than someone just trying to get a job.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many, it's so much more involved and so much more, there's so much more to it, complicated, there's so many more facets to it, getting a person back on their feet and into their lives when they're in the LGBTQ plus community. I noticed on your website that you had people playing guitars. Do you have a music program there?
Well, we love, I mean, me personally, I love, art and music. And so right from the beginning, when we first opened, we made sure to include art, music, and also stuff like Tai Chi and um, yoga, different stuff like that. But I would say, yeah, right from the first day we opened, music has always been a favorite for the clients. It was you can hear the music throughout the whole center,
Oh,
and
yeah.
even on their breaks, they're playing music from the TV. And that's why most of our fundraisers incorporate that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of Queers Got Talent,
No,
but that's a
no.
fundraiser we have in February.
Hmm.
And that was actually started by one of our alumni, and where our clients and the rest of the LGBTQ community, they sign up, and it's kind of like a competition. We have four judges, and everybody gets to compete in different categories. And so for some people, it's the first time that they've ever gone in public and played their guitar and sang, and that's always a favorite. And Pride on the Block too, we've had clients perform both uh, on the stage in lip singing or drag, but also musicians that have gotten to perform on a big stage like that maybe sometimes for the first time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
every week we have karaoke, and again, it's like you see people who would never go up, but then after some time being in the community,
Mhm.
they start to go up and perform. In fact, we had someone who won, uh I think the one of the categories this last time at Queers Got Talent, would not sing or play the guitar in public for quite some time, and they just finally started to, and they did so well that they actually won in their category.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
yes. So yeah, we definitely incorporate a lot of that, and it also is a way to help uh, introduce our clients into the LGBTQ community as a whole. So
Yeah.
we're really close with Compass, our LGBTQ community center. We do a lot of stuff with them, and then two of our events are at Compass,
Oh,
which is Queers Got Talent is at Compass, and then uh, Glam Bingo or Drag Bingo, that's at Compass also. And then we also have Fashion on the Block, again, is another artsy type of event where we had a client who was a fashion designer and went back to fashion school, which the fashion school closed. I think it was FIT while she was there, but she had brought a sewing machine in, and she was sewing and in the housing. And she had a best friend that, unfortunately, a trans woman who was killed in Georgia, and this person was an artist, and she was also an alumni, and she used to do these drip art paintings.
uh-huh.
So we decided to have Fashion on the Block for Trans Day of Remembrance, and it started out on Clematis Street in the same area where Pride on the Block had been the last couple of years. And this last year, we actually moved it to the Norton Museum.
Oh,
And her designs, her fashion were these beautiful dresses,
mm-hmm.
and then she painted the dresses in the drip art, the
Oh,
style of her best
wow.
friend who had passed away. And obviously she was up on, we create this altar of unfortunately folks who have been victims of hate, and so that was our first fashion on the block, and it was sort of dedicated to that person. But again, it's just all about art. Like I think that art is really healing,
Yeah.
and it definitely helps with trauma, and it's a great outlet. And that's why we do incorporate so much music and art into everything we do.
Yeah, that is so true. Music especially is magical when it comes to, even for an escape for someone who may feel like they want to use, or they may feel anxious or anxiety, even if they don't play an instrument or play something, to listen to music can really just bring you to another place. I mean, musical is just a magic for emotion in all sense of the word. So I think the fact that you incorporate art and music is so important. Um, but my mind goes to, like, you're a person, you get this idea, you want to do this, and like, where do you start? Like, it seems to me such a huge taking, and I would imagine takes up most of your time of your life. I mean, this has got to be, you're
Yeah, they
sacrificing.
yeah.
Exactly. Date night if you have a partner, or like being
Yeah.
with your family. But what inspired you to do this, and how did you have the wherewithal to do what this takes to do this huge taking?
Well, I would say that I've always been a person who creates stuff, creates businesses. I'd say that's kind of my art. And I always have the mindset, like an artist, throw something against the wall. If it sticks, great. And if it doesn't, try something else.
Yep.
So I would say, this is not the first business that I created. And I'm always learning, and I've certainly learned a ton, especially, opening up, expanding so fast, expanding, on two different sides of the country. In this last
Yeah.
year, I've definitely, it's that I've definitely learned a lot, a lot about that. But I think for me, like I've always had that understanding that success happens when you continue to move forward.
Mhm.
And in that experience, there's always obstacles. There's always so many different unexpected things that are being thrown at you that you could easily give up and say, nah, I'm done. I can't keep going. But I think that's what success is just continuing to move forward.
Yeah.
And, by doing that, you figure out how to get through each new obstacle that comes up. And then sometimes you have a nice momentum forward, and that can feel great. But I think, like, and with growth, like this type of growth that I've experienced in the last year,
Mhm.
um, it's definitely been difficult, but I think what gives me the will to continue on despite the financial obstacles, and the obstacles of just what's the large, like, kind of country trauma that's happening
Yeah.
now with our community.
Mhm.
But I understand, because of all that, this makes what we're doing so much more important, kind of like an oasis, and a lifeline, and getting to see the community, um basically just like kids, happy, running around happy, like not realizing everything going on out there in the world,
Yeah.
and seeing, like, why shouldn't these folks have the opportunity, just like anyone else, to be able to have a life.
Yeah.
And and that's all anyone wants, is just to be able to live free.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives me the motivation. And anything that I've ever started, any business I've ever started, I've not really known anything about it. So I think that in some way, I am a little bit wired to take a risk
Yeah,
and to and again like to kind of figure it out as I go along and to seek out people who have more knowledge than myself
yeah, yeah.
and just kind of keep it going. If I can just keep it going and really get behind people that have ideas that can work within the organization, sort of like a little, engine to in the background to keep moving things forward.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine it takes a whole lot of stamina. You must have moments of, how can I go on? Like, I mean, do you ever have a why did I start this moment? Like when it's not so much why did you start it that you're feeling like you don't want to do it, but like are you ever overwhelmed in a sense, I would imagine trying to get sometimes if you get pushback from say local politics and the local community where you are trying to find jobs for people coming out of recovery into the world, coming out of
Mhm.
Inspire Recovery. That's you got to have days where you feel that way. Do you ever
Mhm.
get those
Oh yeah, definitely.
moments?
I mean, right now we're in the middle of a ton of audits. We just had a housing audit yesterday
Yeah,
where, the state made all sorts of changes and requirements for that. And then we're getting ready for joint commission audit starting Monday at all three locations. So
oh my
all next
gosh,
week we have audits, and then we have
wow.
our, Florida state audit coming up, which is different than joint commission, and then California state audit coming up. So I'd say the hardest part is now when the finances are really tough. I think that's what makes things the most difficult. And then of course, like when you're like anytime we're getting ready for an audit, that's definitely, a stressful time.
Yeah,
And then I think, this idea that I had of opening in California and Florida, at the same time, I maybe I could have done that a little bit differently.
yeah,
However, it is what I did, and now it's just figuring out how to navigate and go back and forth, kind of like what are the best flights to take, uh that kind of, that kind of thing. And yeah, but I think overall I would say that, anytime that I have gotten through the most difficult and stressful times, I'm usually, the feeling of gratitude to see what these, the lives are for all of these folks that have
yeah.
these amazing lives today. I'd say that definitely makes it worth it.
That has to be everything to see that the changes you've made in people's lives and in hearing you talk like I'm getting overwhelmed like thinking you couldn't have places in two further away places, California
Yeah.
and South Florida, and then it's so different as far as the politics because California
Yeah.
very liberal, Florida is very conservative, and the I know from friends that have 501(c)(3)s the scrutiny that you get in your books and keeping your record keeping. 501(c)(3)s are probably the most scrutinized when it comes to that when an audit
Yeah.
is presented. So that's got to be extra. I mean, I appreciate you giving us your time today
Yeah.
because when you said you were in audits, I was like, wow. Like I didn't even realize how much that entailed for you until you were just saying this now. But audits in general
Mhm.
are super stressful, so um,
Oh yeah.
that's got to be
Absolutely.
a trying time. And so for that, I appreciate your time and. Um, I wanted to ask you, do you have a board of people that will help you navigate all of this, that you can go to have people do separate, people that do their own individual tasks, so not everything is on you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't do it without everybody that work with me,
Yeah.
and without our board. And I think that and as far as like Pride on the Block, that's one event that takes a lot of time. And I think next week you're going to be interviewing Chris Rhodes,
Mhm.
and Chris has been an incredible help and volunteer for Transpire Help, and especially for Pride on the Block, and especially this year for Pride on the Block. So, I think you're gonna get to meet him and hear a little bit about him, and just, yeah, no, he's been really helpful. And then everyone that is getting ready for this audit, we have a team.
Mhm.
And but I'd say, that team is coming and working most days, early in the morning, some till 2 a.m. And it's been like that for just a bit now. And I think that we'll all be happy once we're through these next audits. And it's always really relieving the day after Pride on the Block. Usually I end up flying to New Jersey. My family is from there, and I usually have
Okay.
some kind of a family event for some reason the next day. So I'm usually cleaning up Pride on the Block till 3, 4 in the morning, and then I'm getting on a 6 a.m. flight
Oh,
to
wow.
go to New Jersey. But the relief that I have when I get there,
Right.
after getting through that event,
Yeah, yeah.
it's, sort of it's usually stressful even without the audits leading up, the 6 months leading up to Pride on the Block. And but then the day after, when it's over, I'm like, oh, that was great. Why was I so stressed? No, like that. It's seeing the magic that happens that day. Um, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's why we do this. This
Right.
is why we do it. Like, yeah, it is never, the fun is not preparing, but it is really fun that day. And it's really great to see the community come together. And especially, I think we have such a wide range of folks that come out to Pride on the Block.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely very rewarding when we do get to just experience the joy of that day. And then it's really great when we get through an audit and, we're
That too.
successful. It's
Yeah.
always nerve-wracking, but so far we've made it through all of our audits to date, and
Oh,
it's
great.
gone well.
Good.
So hopefully the same thing will happen next week, and continue to happen. So it's a lot of stress and then stress relief,
Yeah. I guess it could
Okay.
be likened to childbirth. Like you go through the birth process, the labor process, but then when you see the baby, all you forget about all the pain that you went through. I mean, so I hear, I don't have children, but so I hear you forget all about the pain because you have such joy afterwards. The labor of love, and the labor of your commitment to doing this is so amazingly, intense, and just, there's a purpose there, and there's such a need for it. I can imagine at the end of that day, it's a really good kind of tired at the end of Pride on the Block, and maybe kind of nice to
Mhm.
go to a family event after that, right? To just get on a plane and leave for a little while and get your mind
It's
out
so
of that.
great. It's
Yeah.
so great. Yeah, just and then I go to Pride festivals in New Jersey and
Oh,
get
nice.
I get ideas. I usually go to Montclair Pride, which is huge. And sometimes we've had some musicians that perform at Pride on the Block that will then be performing in New Jersey.
Oh,
So it's just
cool.
nice to be able to be just a person walking around and not planning an
Right?
event. But yeah,
Just
so
enjoy
it does
it.
feel nice. Yeah, it feels pretty good to have that time right after being away from
Yeah.
everything.
You don't sound like a Jersey girl. I don't, have you been down here a long time?
I guess I have. Yeah, I have been here a while. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I've always felt that even my parents being born and raised in New York City, they to
Oh,
me have never, they don't really sound like it,
why? Yeah.
and yeah, for some reason I don't sound like it too much either, but I have been here a while.
Yeah, that's why though, if they were born and raised in New York City, it's a whole different, not the same accent, or there really is not an accent in the city. I grew up on Long Island, so we definitely have
Okay.
our own accent,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, you do.
but
Yeah,
and
I was originally from the Bronx, and
oh,
my mom was from the Bronx, and my dad
uh,
was from Washington Heights, and then we moved to the suburbs of New Jersey, and somehow they never seemed to have the same, accents that some of my friends' parents had that,
right.
you know, f- for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. I've been I went down the rabbit hole of watching The Sopranos because it's on HBO Max. I guess it's been on there all along, but I just discovered that it's on there. It started coming up, and that's definitely the Jersey feel
Mhm.
right there in that show. But
Yeah.
I'm just so excited to be part of Pride on the Block this year, and so excited to now knowing now what the cause is that this event is benefiting, because it's so heroic. I don't know another word for it, because this is such a necessary organization. It's like, where would these people go if people like you did not make so much sacrifice to create this space? Um, I'm sure there are more people on this earth now because of you and all of your people that you work with, your staff and your board, that give so much to help people in the community get the help they need in an environment where they're comfortable being who they are, because that's
Mhm.
got to be a whole part of the fight right there, coming out of addiction and going into recovery to feel comfortable in your own skin, and that not still being a fight.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, for, the community, just having their basic needs met, and that's what Transpire Help does. So when folks come to stay with us, we pay for their housing, all of their any type of expense that they would occur, like, for example, like if they don't have food stamps, we get them food. Then we get them on food stamps. Any hygiene products, any medication co-pays, we get them to and from doctor's appointments. We'll pay. Like, let's say they have to see a dentist or an outside doctor. We also cover that. So we basically cover
Okay.
their life until they're able to start making money and working, and so then they can save a little bit, but then they're able to have enough to move out and support themselves. So that's the process. So we're able to help them until that point. And I think that, with the LGBTQ community, there's such a, loving community that just would love to be able to feel loved back.
Yeah.
And,
uh,
we're such a nice, kind, loving community, which is why, Pride festivals are so enjoyable. They're
yes,
so,
so true, so true.
it's so much inclusivity. And so just that alone makes all the difference for an LGBTQ person. And that's what I mean. Like,
Lee.
seeing LGBTQ folk, it's almost like, sometimes development gets interrupted for an LGBTQ person when they're young, because, they're told, don't act like that. You can't grow your hair
Right.
like that. You can't do your nails like that. You can't, play with that toy. And so every which way they turn, they're sort of like stunned and
Yes.
paralyzed. So
Yes.
that persona that's their authentic self stops growing. And instead, this persona develops. And so that when someone comes to our center, which, like you said, it doesn't really exist anywhere in the country, and this is even in California. So it's it's almost like that development starts again.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
when you look at, our community that is in this environment for the first time ever, it's almost like watching kids, being able to be
yeah.
free for the first time in their life, playing in a playground, running around,
Wow,
being free.
wow.
And that's just from loving the community, right? That's it.
Absolutely. What a
Affirming the
beautiful,
community, accepting the community, being able to feel normal,
that is such a
which,
beautiful thing. Um,
hmm
Definitely you're doing what I call God's work, but it's just there's not enough of that, it's like, and the fact that you cover the expenses that you do, the resources, I mean, you must constantly be looking for grants. And I mean, like I said, my friends that have 501(c)(3)s, grant writing and going different places everywhere in the communities to look for funding. The fact that someone can come there and have that worry taken off of them could make them recover so much better and probably so much quicker. Um, it's phenomenal. It's unbelievable what you are doing. Like, so commendable. Like, you are just a hero. You're just doing amazing work, Donna. I didn't realize what this was about before we spoke. I wanted to ask you, is this for youth or is this for people of all ages?
we are 18 plus.
18 plus. Oh, okay.
So
And
it'd be great, to be able to offer this for youth, but we are just 18 plus. So once someone um, is an adult, then they're able to come to our center.
do you have people that come to you that pay? Like, do you have people is it a sliding scale type of thing where they can come to you and say, I'm paying for my stay here. I need the recovery part of it. Um,
Yeah, we definitely, it's few, like I said, our community usually lacks resources,
yeah, yeah,
but few and far between. Every every now and then through the years, we'll have someone who can pay, or their family can pay.
yeah, yeah.
But they don't, it's not our typical client. And then we also take health insurance.
Oh,
And I do think that the nice thing about if someone does come through a nonprofit and they get to have that experience, um, they stay a lot longer than like health insurance. They want to stop paying, very quickly.
yeah,
And so if a person, in order for someone to stay as long as they do stay with us, it's usually they're usually the scholarship clients that come through the nonprofit
uh-huh,
versus
uh-huh.
insurance clients, because insurance insurance is doing everything they can not to pay
Oh,
and
yeah, of
not
course.
to authorize
How
stays,
they're built.
when, if they could look at how much better the clients do when they get the opportunity to stay,
Mhm.
maybe they would reconsider, but that's not our healthcare system, so that's not
Right,
the
right.
case. But yeah, people can certainly self-pay
Yeah,
and utilize insurance, but the nonprofit is set up for the folks that don't have insurance, don't have funds. And we do also work with the justice system, so we work with Broward, Palm Beach, Broward, Martin County, and we have other organizations that we work with that help folks, LGBTQ folks, to be able to, instead of sitting, being a victim of the justice system, they get to stay with us. And sometimes they're court ordered for, like, that's when maybe someone might stay for a year.
right. Wow,
And so we have relationships
wow.
with public defenders and then organizations like CHIP or Chainless Change, and um, a couple other organizations that will reach out to us, and then they go to court with them. We give them a letter, and then the court will say, okay, you can stay there instead of having to have that, have more trauma as being part of the justice system. And great successes. Actually, even the person who started Queer's Got Talent was someone who showed up in full body shackles and ended up
Oh,
staying with us for a year, and is, an active alumni, and has been,
wow.
I think the first job that person got was at Walmart and did well. And I'd say that that's definitely the case a lot, where we're able to help people, who are from the justice system, or, people that have been sometimes, you know, unhoused, or, without for many, many, many years. We have a house manager who I think was 12 years, literally just lived on the street, had no skills whatsoever, like didn't even know how much shampoo and conditioner to use.
Oh my,
And now is a house manager,
wow.
and working at I think PDQ.
Oh
And
my God. That's
not
awesome.
even, that wasn't even, something they could have fathomed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I am so overwhelmed by everything you're saying. It is so awesome. Like I keep saying wow because I don't know another word to say, that's so it's amazing. You're right. I mean, someone who's coming off the streets or out, who's in an addiction, how are they going to go get a job somewhere and restart their life? And then the fact that you have a place where they would go and you take care of everything for them to get that chance to restart their life, whether or not they're coming from the justice system, or just coming in off the street, is just an amazing work. And I'm so honored to meet you and get to talk to you and find out what this is all about. Like I said, I really didn't know everything that you did there, and I'm honored to be part of Pride on the Block. I will do everything to get the word out about your organization and get you guys, funding and whatever you need, like in help with that. Other fundraisers that you might do, and I'll bring a bunch of people to Pride on the Block to support that too. So I
Yeah,
so
that's amazing. Yeah, we're very excited, because I remember last year we met you and we sort of had our lineup already.
yes, yeah.
And then when I saw you this year, and I reached out to Chris and mentioned who you were, and I was really glad you two hit it off, and
Yeah,
that, he was able to bring you this year to be a part of Pride on the Block. And I know we talked about doing this last year, and I'm glad I finally got to do it this year,
that's
and
great.
excited for you to interview him next week as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad we did you guys separately because he had asked about you guys coming on together or separately, and then I thought, why don't we do it separately? Because they're two different things. Like we could talk about, and I'm glad we did because we got to find out so much of what you do. And next week we're going to find out everything Chris does with Pride on the Block. When I got the text from him, it literally made my day. I texted him back and I said, I am so happy to get this text because I actually submitted because I saw it was coming up again. And when I first met you, you already kind of had your lineup. And I said, I'm going to let them know that I'm available. And then I didn't hear back. And I thought, well, maybe you had the lineup already because people book ahead of time. When I heard from Chris, it was just awesome. And we had the greatest conversation. And then he mentioned about having you on. So I so appreciate your time today with everything you have going on the usual and now the audits.
I appreciate your time, and maybe in the future I'll get to meet Denise.
For sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah, thank you so much for having me on today, and having Chris on next week. And
that's
definitely looking forward to seeing you at Pride on the Block. I've seen you the last 2 years at Palm Beach Pride, so definitely very, very excited. Hope to see Joni too. And
I'll take
um,
her. I'll bring her with me.
yeah,
What is the one in California called?
that's called Pride Detox.
Pride
Pride
Box.
Detox. Yeah, and we named it Pride because we felt like we could. Um, but in Florida, our detox is Q space detox for queer, but we didn't want to put
Oh,
yeah, we decided to name it more, a little less understood by someone who's not queer. But our colors definitely indicate to someone who is part of the community who we are. And then Transpire Help, that's the organization. So if people do want to donate, they can go to transpirehelp.org. Or if anyone wants to sponsor, they can go to prideontheblock.com, and they can still sponsor Pride on the Block.
Mhm.
But just a regular donation would be transpirehelp.org.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You read my mind. That was going to be my next question. How can we find you? How can people donate? My wheels are turning. I'm working on a new song that I think would be perfect to benefit what you're doing. We'll talk about that because I want to do a video for this, and it's about pride and fighting for who you are. So we'll get in touch with.
Amazing,
I'll
amazing,
be in
yeah.
touch with you about that. We're going to keep getting the word out about the amazing, wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you so much. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much. Absolutely.
Take care,
All right.
Donna.
You too. Take care.